everyone, Kelly here, and today is my birthday, and so I wanted to do the birthday book tag. And I had seen this tag most recently on Kara's channel from the Wild Book Garden, and her birthday was last month in April, and so I wasn't specifically tagged by her, but she did put at the end of her video that anybody with a birthday coming up is tagged. So I'm just going to count myself as being tagged. And this tag was originally on a book blog called Always Books, and I will make sure to link that down below. And I also will link Kara's video in case you want to go and see that. And this is a pretty short tag. There's only 7 questions, so let's get to it. So the first one is Birthday Cake, a book with a plot that seems cliche, but that you adore it anyway. And for me, a lot of books that fill into this category are some of the romances I read because, you know, you love a good trope in a romance book. And the one that I picked for this was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, because this is one that has a lot of tropes in it. There's like the hate to love relationship, there's a fake marriage or fake relationship, there's miscommunication, a lot of the stuff that goes into romance books, but I just love it. I've read it twice now, and I just think it's a lot of fun. If you haven't heard of this one, it was going around a lot a couple years ago, but if you don't know, it's about 2 people whose siblings got married, and at the wedding everybody got sick from the seafood buffet except for these 2 siblings, because one of them is allergic to shellfish and the other one doesn't eat off of buffets, and they also don't like each other. But the bride, it enters into a lot of contests, and she got her honeymoon for free, and because it was like a prize, it's non-refundable and non-transferable to a different date, and so she asked her sister to just go on her honeymoon, and the grooms also asked his brother to go on the honeymoon. So the 2 siblings so the bride's sister and the groom's brother end up going on the honeymoon together and pretending to be their siblings, and they have to pretend to be married. And it's just fun. You know, they start off not liking each other. They learn there was some miscommunication there, and you know what happens in a romance book. I think it was fun, even though it does fit a lot of the cliches of the genre. Number 2 is Party Guests, your most anticipated book release of the year. And this is the first book that I have ever pre-ordered. I just am not someone that pre-orders books, usually because a lot of new releases in the United States come in hardback, and that's just not my preferred. As you could probably tell, I prefer paperbacks, but this one happened to come out in a paperback, and so I pre-ordered it and got it last week, and that is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. Beach Read was one of my favorite books of, was it last year? I've read it twice already, and so I am very much looking forward to reading this new romance novel soon. I'm excited, and this is just a fun looking summary cover. So I don't know if I want to read it right away or wait until like the beginning of June to really get the summer vibes, but this is definitely my most anticipated release of this year. Number 3 is Birthday Presents, a book that surprised you with how much you loved it. And for this, I actually want to talk about 2 books, because the combination of these 2 books getting 5 stars is what really made me reconsider some of the things that I love. Because I used to say that I didn't like short stories, and then I ended up in 2020 rating 2 short story collections 5 stars, love them both, and so that made me realize I do like short stories if they're by an author that I really enjoy. And so the first one that I read and gave 5 stars was The Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. I think this is counted as maybe number 4 in the series, but it's like the second book of short stories, and I loved these ones. I feel like they were a lot more adventurous, and so kept me hooked in each story. And also we got to learn a lot about the human side of Sherlock and kind of his personality. So I loved this collection. And then later in the year, I read How Long Till Black Future Month by N.K. Jemisin, and this was just brilliant. Almost every single story was so inventive, so interesting. Even ones that I didn't absolutely love, that I would only maybe give 3 stars to, were still just the concept was amazing. So I ended up giving the whole collection 5 stars, and I had to go out and buy it because I know I'm going to want to reread some of these stories. So just having both of these be 5-star books last year made me realize that I can really love short stories, and so I was surprised by how much I loved these two. Number 4 is Happy Birthday Song, a book that certainly deserved all the hype it got. And for this one, I want to talk about All Systems Red by Martha Wells. And this is the first book in the Murderbot Diaries. And I have read the first 5 books in that series. The 6th one just came out, and I actually have it from the library. So I definitely will be continuing the series. And this book, first book, was 5 stars for me. I totally get all the hype now about Murderbot. Like, everybody's been talking about Murderbot for the last few years, and I finally decided to read it, and I do. I love Murderbot. Murderbot is just kind of like a snarky robot humanoid thing of the future that was originally like a security bot, but like just really wants to spend all day watching television. And Murderbot is sarcastic and fun, but there's a lot of action in these novellas. The first 4 are all novellas, and I really loved the first 4 books in the series. But yeah, All Systems Red, the first one, was my favorite and deserves all the hype it gets. So definitely I'm on the Murderbot train. Number 5 is Happy Music, a book with some very beautiful or truly memorable quotes. And I'm not one that normally like highlights or puts flags in books, because I just never keep that stuff around when I'm reading, so I never think to like actually mark up my books, and not because I don't want to, I just don't usually have the stuff available to do it, and I just don't think about it. So I was thinking about just a book that stands up in my mind as something that I remember the writing being really beautiful. And for that, the thing that popped in my head was King and the Dragonflies by Kacen Callender. This was one of my very favorite middle grade books in 2020. I absolutely loved it. It is about a boy named King who's kind of like discovering more about himself, about his sexuality, and also going through some things in his life. His brother had recently died tragically, like with no warning, and his brother was only like 16 or something like that. So his family is going through grief. He's also dealing with trying to figure out more about himself and like how to tell that to his family when they're going through all this. And so it was just a beautiful story, and I just remember moments of the writing just being so gorgeous. And so I really want to read more by Kacen Callender. And I had read this as a library book, so I couldn't actually mark it up, and so I don't have like quotes to tell you, but I just remember thinking the writing was really moving. Number 6 is Getting Older, a book that you read a long time ago, but you think you would appreciate it more if you read it now as a more mature reader. And for this one, I think that Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier is one that I would like to revisit now that I am older. I read it for the first time when I was just out of college. I was probably, like 22 or something like that. And I don't even remember how I picked this one up. I just remember reading it and thinking it was completely boring. Like, I don't remember anything about the story. I just remember at the time I was like, why is this a classic? Why do people like this? It's so boring. But at the time when I was reading it, when I was 22, most of what I was reading was like crime fiction, thrillers, like things that were really popular, James Patterson, books like that. So a slow moving classic was not really like something that I liked at the time, but it is something more that I like now, and I like more of that gothic feel. I've read some other Daphne du Maurier now and liked it, so I think I should revisit this book because it is like classic gothic fiction that a lot of people love. Obviously, they just made a new adaptation of it. So I think now that I am a more mature reader, I would like to revisit this book. And the last prompt is Sweet Birthday Memories, a book that kept you incredibly happy during a sad or demanding period in your life. And the first thing that popped in my mind as a demanding part of my life, not a sad time, but when my second daughter was a baby, she was one of those babies that would not sleep without being held. If you put her down, she would just cry for as long as you left her down. Like, she did not self-soothe at all, like even up to like 10 months. Yeah, so we were holding her all the time or sleeping with her, and then she would also wake up like every 2 hours in the night. So there were a lot of times when I would be just sitting with her, holding her, and trying to keep her asleep because we weren't getting much sleep. So I was trying to keep her quiet so that my husband could sleep, or whatever, vice versa. And so instead of holding a book, because I was holding the baby all the time, I ended up listening to the entirety of the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer when my daughter was a baby. because I could just put in my headphones and listen while holding her and keeping her asleep and like keeping her comforted. But you know, I'd be holding her for hours at a time, and so a very long series. So I ended up reading like all 4 of the novels, the short story collection, the novella, all of it when she was a tiny baby. So this just like really got me through that time of just having to comfort a crying infant and getting 2 hours of sleep at a time for 10 months. So that did really keep me happy during a very demanding time of my life. So that's it. That is the birthday book tag. I had a great birthday. My husband actually surprised me over the weekend. My birthday is today, Monday, but on Friday when I woke up and went out to come out for breakfast, my husband surprised me and said to go get packed, and he sent me on a weekend trip with my best friend. So like he and my best friend had been like talking for months, about like a couple months, planning this trip, and they both kept it secret from me. It was like amazing that they were able to keep this a secret. They rented a cabin for us to have a ladies weekend because I haven't had a night away from the kids since the pandemic started. So this was like our first. We were supposed to go on a ladies weekend back in May of 2020, which obviously we had to cancel because of the pandemic. So this was like us finally getting to have a ladies weekend since we're both fully vaccinated. So it was just an amazing weekend of just getting to hang out with my best friend and getting to like just hike and enjoy time together, play games, all kinds of things that we got to do. So I had an amazing birthday weekend. If your birthday is in May, I also wish you a happy birthday. I'm not going to say tag anybody specific. I know that Tia from Tia on the Books and Chloe from Always Booked had birthdays recently, but I don't want to like stress you guys out and think that you have to do this. But if you have a May birthday or a June birthday coming up and you want to do this, consider yourself tagged, and I hope you enjoy your birthday if it's coming up. See you next time. Bye.